Okay, friends. So today, Shabbos Bereishit. So first I want to tell you, this is very important, that Tzemach Tzedek said, that's the third Rebbe of Lubavitch, and made a famous statement that would quote this almost every year, if not every yeyear. He said in Yiddish, as you mishtelt sich avek Shabbos Bereishit, azoy geht the ganze Jahr. Translation, the way a person orientates himself or positions himself on Shabbos Bereishit, that's how the whole year goes. So this is the channel. Shabbos Bereishit is the funnel. It's the connecting point for all the brachas and all of the connections that we forged throughout Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Ishan Rabbah, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah. It's all now going to surge and suffuse the whole year on this Shabbat. This is the portal. So it's very important that this Shabbos, we're like really cognizant of how powerful it is, because it affects the entire year. One of the things that Rebbe said is, what does this mean practically? He said, everything should be in a broad way. What does a broad way mean? He didn't elaborate, but I'm sure there's many layers of meaning to that, but not narrow and mature on all of its levels. First, it means joyous. It means in our relationships not to get bogged down in minutiae, but to be embracing and broad-minded, emotionally broad. Our davening should be, and our Shabbos meals with our family and our community, everything is embracive, is rich, is not petty. Maybe in simple language, we don't need petty anytime, but especially not petty on Shabbos Bereishit. You want richness to follow for the year to come. I mean, richness spiritually, physically, and all of its levels. So we have to be rich and broad and embracing on this Shabbos. Davening has to be rich, putting ourselves into every word, invested, everything. A good Shabbos to a friend is with richness, broad, embracing, be engaged fully in a broad, deep way. There may be other meanings to that as well, but that's surely also part of it. Okay, so heads up, starting Friday night, I guess this afternoon already, out of Shabbos, everything with a breitkeit. Tzedakah, we're giving tzedakah today, whatever, the vision has to be broad, everything big. Think big, act big, feel big. Doesn't mean arrogant, it's the opposite. Embrace. The mature person can tolerate something which is aggravating, which is opposite. It's the petty-minded person that can't and gets angry and snaps back. The contrary, maturity means humility. You can tolerate, embrace, bigger picture, not get bogged down in the minutiae. Okay, so that's just an intro to Shabbos Bereishit. I'd like to address today, it's something we speak about often, but I want to do so today, and God willing continue in greater detail, and that is, Bereishit, of course, is the account of creation. I just want to add something else before we begin. It's a beautiful word. The Torah starts with a base, which is a very big question. Why would the Torah start with the base? It's the second letter of the Aleph base. Why not start with Aleph, the first letter, and say, Elokim bara Bereishit. God created the beginning. That should be the way it starts. The first word should be Hashem, because he's the first primal, absolute being. And it starts with an Aleph. I mean, so there's endless answers to this question. Here's just one beautiful little answer. We're coming now, again, from Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah. So the letter base, look how it's built. The back is closed, the front is open. Right? It opens to all the letters which follow. One of the messages is, a person could on this Shabbos think, I did shuv, I didn't, really, how sincere, and start to doubt himself and his whole Tishrei, his whole Avodah. So base, we go forward. What was is only there to propel us to go forward. Don't get bogged down in the past. Forward. That's the message. New brachas, new connection. How well did I utilize it? Truth is, this Shabbos is a Shabbos to kind of reconnect. That's why in Chabad, we sing all of the Nigundim. We're trying to, it's connecting all to all of it. But the message is like a letter base, forward march. Okay, now to our subject. So the Torah describes Hashem creating the world using the metaphor of speech. And God said, let there be light. And so on. 9 times it says, and Hashem said, let there be. And the word Bereishit is also considered one of those utterances, a general utterance. So it's a total of 10. The question I want to address this morning is, why use a metaphor to begin with? God said, we actually mean speech? Do we think that it'd be a phone, a tape recorder, at the beginning of creation, we'd hear this male voice booming throughout the universe? I promise you not. It's not physical speech. So why give the metaphor? It's the Loshem Dayodem. It's a metaphor, like God's hand. It means a physical hand? No. So what's the point of using this metaphor? Just say created. What are we missing? On the contrary, if the Torah would not use any metaphor, and just saying that God created lightning, God created all the things of creation, He created. Leave it just undefined without using any human parallels or property. We cannot create. Human beings cannot create something out of nothing. Only God can. How did He do it? God created. By saying speech, we're now getting an imagery. No, it doesn't really mean that. It's only a metaphor. So we go to the metaphor, then we have to strip it, divest ourselves of the metaphor. Who needs it? So Chassidus explains there are we'll share with you many layers of reasons why the Torah uses dafka, the metaphor of speech, to describe the creative process. And let's identify some of these reasons and levels. Number 1, if the Torah would say God created, I might conclude mistakenly the following. He created it and now it exists independently. He's a creator, yeah. And now that it is, and it's intrinsically present. And God looks down from heaven and governs, directs, rewards, punishes as He sees fit. But creation fundamentally is a now distinct, created reality. By saying, and God said, let there be light, that the Torah is hinting to or saying this, just like speech only exists as long as I'm talking. When I stop talking, the words no longer exist. You can record them, that's not my voice anymore. When you record it, that's a simulation, a very accurate simulation of my voice, but it's not my voice. So just like words only exist as long as the person is talking, so too, huge message here, creation is an ongoing process. And that wouldn't be conveyed if it just said God created. I wouldn't necessarily conclude that. But speech compels me to understand message number 1, that it's ongoing. Every second, Hashem is bringing every detail of creation into existence. Why must it be every second? Now, of course, we actually say this explicitly every day before the Shema, and we praise Hashem, and we say, "Amachadesh b'tuvoi," He renews in His goodness, b'chol yom, every day. We don't stop there, and then we add the word tamid, continuously, Moishe Bereishit, the works of creation. And the Baal Shem Tov explained that to me, as well as other verses, that the divine force that created creation to begin with 5,782 years ago continues to this very millisecond. Why must it be so? This is a very fundamental idea. We said before that creation means something from nothing. And we can't even imagine what that means. Because you can't imagine nothing, because as soon as you imagine it, it's something. All we can say is no thing. You can't say what it is because it isn't. The human being cannot conceive of nothing. We're talking about meditation before, and I was involved in these meditation groups, ashrams in NDG and other places. And we sat for many hours, many nights in meditation and in talking, bringing together. I learned a lot about what they're trying to do, and hopefully, well, some of them actually left and went on to yeshivas, so Baruch Hashem. So what are they trying to do in meditation? They're trying to approach nothingness, recognizing you can never. They're trying to still the mind from every kind of image, sound, color, blank, and more skilled, and it's very difficult the closer you get to, but it can never be nothing. In fact, they speak out of blue light, and there's a whole... So we can't imagine nothing. We just conceptually, we can just say it's no thing. So what existed before creation? Only Hashem himself. Now here's the crux of it, friends. This is a very deep, a very important point you think about every day, which is why we daven every day. One of the main reasons for davening, friends, is to meditate on what we're talking about right now. Because our experience is, this is something. It is. I'm here, I am. Like Paroi says. Paroi said, he was the ultimate opposer of godliness. Ani yo'odi v'ani asisini. I am the Nile, which was the source of life. I made myself. I'm intrinsically real. And davening every day, how many times do you have to daven and say that God is wonderful? I'm asking you a question. I'm reminded of, someone that came to MTC, doesn't like saying his name, actually maybe it's a compliment. He came Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, he's a supporter of ours, a big supporter. Opens up the machzor. He's going through the pages here, one page, another page. He says, Rabbi, I can summarize this in one word. God's great. Please help me. Please give me. Please save me. Say 1,000 times. Great, great, great. This way, that way, that way. But how many times do you have to be told that he's wonderful? 3 times a day and over again in every page. The point of davening is to hammer into our head this truth. What truth? That creation is ongoing and intrinsically it has no reality. Let's explain this a little bit. Something from nothing is really nothing. So how come it's here? What's the truth of this and everything? The truth is, it has no truth. It's merely the result of Hashem's will that it be. Hashem is talking creation into existence every moment. Because creation left unto its own device collapses into nothingness, ceases to be. Let's give a very simple example, a little bit of an example. It's a bit crude, but it brings out the point. Crude, I mean, as in not such a refined example. You have a bowl of water that fills the entire bowl. You take a straw, my friends, and you blow. And you create an empty space in the water. You're blowing for 1 second, 10 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, a day, a week, a month, 5,000 years, blowing and blowing, blowing. The second you stop blowing, that empty space disappears fundamentally. The person comes a second after the 5,000 years you stop blowing, can never even know that there's empty space here. Wouldn't even know. What does this bring out? The nature, it's a simple example. The nature of water is to fill the bowl. You want to create an empty space, it needs a constant force. A constant force is required to create that vacuum, that empty space in the middle. So too, Hashem, before creation, is only God. He fills everything. Truth is, there's no everything, but he is everything. Hashem decides creation. That is fundamentally unnatural. So therefore, he has to constantly allow for it, will it. The moment he stops, then things revert to the way they always were. God alone and nothing else. Creation is an ongoing process. And it's true of the minutiae of life. Another illustration the Chassidus brings. Okay, just this one. to explain the nature of God and his relationship to creation and creation's relationship to him. I would ask you right now, close your eyes and imagine, think about your house. Have the image of the house in your head. Now, here's the question to you. Is there an image of the house in your head? Yep. Maybe a very sophisticated machine plugged to your head could actually on a screen show you're thinking of a house. Now, thank God we don't walk around plugged into machines so people know what we're thinking. Maybe it does. But everybody else, thank God, doesn't. Okay, they'll just decide. Now, this image in your head, friend, this is what I'm trying to bring out here. Is there an image there? Yes. Is that image separate from you? Does it have any independence? Could I go and I can represent that image on the screen, but can I take that image from your head? No. I'm thinking of it and it exists while I'm thinking of it. It's only as a result of me wanting to think about it. When I don't think about that image, it's gone. So it illustrates it's there, but it's not independent from me. It's not something else. I didn't acquire it somewhere. I conjured it. I came up with it in my mind. So it's there, but it's not something other than me. It's my will to think about it. When I don't, it's gone. Now, it's also not a perfect example because there are no perfect examples because we cannot create something out of nothing. This is not out of nothing. The house is there. I'm just putting it here. But it helps us a little bit in something exists, but it's not independent from the source that is bringing it into being every second. It's only possible while I'm ongoing thinking about it. Again, friends, let's appreciate this. This is something that we have only recently discovered in science, but Torah said thousands of years ago. Man cannot create or destroy. You can't make things disappear. We can make them break down. You burn something, it doesn't disappear. The atoms are there. You just broke it down. You can nuke it. A huge, actually, you get down to the atomic level and you tamper with that, you release tremendous energy. Nothing disappears, nothing. And we can't create out of nothing either. Anything you make, you're taking existing materials, you make a painting, a rocket ship, you can make any, very complex things, but you didn't create in the sense of something from nothing. No, all we do is change form. That's all we can do. We can combine and we can break down. We cannot create out of nothing. God creates out of nothing, and that requires a constant process. Since we're not creating out of nothing, all we're doing is, like Al says in Tanya, I make this cup. The clay exists, or whatever this is, the porcelain exists. We play with it and instead of make the shape, and then walk away, and the cup doesn't need me, the potter, anymore. Why? Because to begin with, the materials that made up this cup are independent from me. Well, just play with the shape. It doesn't need me to maintain that. So we can make things, walk away, and it's independent because we're not creating them. We just played with the shape very cleverly with the intelligence that God gave us and produced complex things like phones. But every particle of that exists within nature, independent from me, the person. Hashem, however, creates something out of nothing. That can't be once and left alone. It can't be, because it has no reality. There's only God. It's coming from nothing. So how does it still exist if it's in essence nothing? Because he's constantly willing it into being. Again, that image in your head only exists in your head while you're thinking about it. Another example brought in Chassidus is a third example. You take a stone or any object, and I take a ball. I take this, and while it's sailing through the air, I say to you, is the ball flying? Is the stone flying? Is the stone flying? Yeah. Well, actually, the stone is fighting its flight. The stone is resisting the flight. What's making it fly? My energy wrapped around it has velocity and lifting it into the air, so it's sailing through the air. And as my energy dissipates, It makes an arc and eventually falls to the ground. But while it's flying, so here's the point. When I ask the question, is the stone flying? The answer is, it isn't flying, it's being flown. So does the world exist? No. It's being brought into existence, yeah. It's being existed. That's the emes. The emes is the world does not exist, meaning intrinsically per se independent. But is it here? Yeah, because it's being brought into existence every millisecond. This is a huge fundamental concept. That's what is meant by Hashem Echad. God is one. God's the only reality. What do you mean? There's me, you, there's a billion things. He's the only reality. He is because he is. We are because he wills us to be. We don't have our own reality. Our reality is his desire that we be. And his reality is him. This is a huge idea. Now you understand why we're davening 3 times a day. Because Hashem made us with a sense of independence. What do you mean? I am. And then also God, every second we're struggling with, it's ego. Every second we're struggling with my sense of me as something intrinsically, inherently true that I've got to dissolve and overcome to the degree that I can. No, my whole being is, because he's creating me, he's the truth, not me. And therefore, for me to be true, I got to reveal his presence. The more surrendered I am to him, the truer I am. Meaning, I'm expressing the truth that I am brought into being because he wants me to. And that's why you have mitzvahs for every second. There's not a moment in a Jew's life where Torah doesn't say, make that godly or meaningful. Restate that. Make that a moment where you're revealing the truth of what you are. A creation of Hashem. How do you do that? When you're in business, you give tzedakah. When you eat, you make a bracha. All of the laws that govern every moment of life are all to express the emes. And then the mind has to embrace that, understand that, and appreciate that. And it's this is the struggle in life. So we said before, Shabbos Bereishit, we have to, be broad. The deeper meaning being broad is not be stuck in me. Breitkeit means not me. Eibishter, another Jew, creation, purpose, cognizant of the truth. It's really a humbling thing. Ultimate humbling thing. Dissolve a little bit the my need and my world, per se. This is the struggle of life, and this is conveyed, one of the meanings that Hashem said, to bring out that creation is not a one-time deal. He created it, and boom, and now I am. And he looks down or doesn't look down, ignores me, doesn't ignore me, rewards or doesn't. No, Hashem is intimately involved in creating every fiber, every subatomic particle of me and everything. And one of the great conclusions of this is divine providence. Of course, everything is divine providence. How could it not be? Could there be something in the world that just happens just like this? He's creating it. He's bringing it into being. So of course it's for a reason, for a purpose. And this is an awesome conclusion. And we think deeply about this. Not only am I never alone, Hashem is always with me, much more than that. Intimately involved in creating everything around me, including my body, everything at every second. The next conclusion is, it's all good. Could be terribly concealed. I don't see it. And there's I'll hide my face. You won't see my involvement. You won't feel it, but he still is. And his promises, when Mashiach comes, where you thought that I'd abandoned you, you'll then revisit that and realize I was there present with you in the deepest way. That's the Messianic era. When Mashiach will come, what is it all? It's this truth revealed. That's all. That's all. That's everything. And where you thought you couldn't be, where were you? Where was I? Yes, we'll see in that Hashem was there, and it's all him. All him, all the result of his will. Again, that's what we're davening constantly, 3 times a day, to hammer this into the head, into the heart. Stop being wrapped up in me per se. There's one truth, Hashem Echad, of which everything is expressive of. You, me, and everything. That's a humble life. It's a life of service. It's a life of meeting. It's a life of joy. A life of humility. And there's endless levels to this. It's not one level you arrived. There's endless levels because we're always going to be bound to the self to some degree. Even the biggest tzaddik who loves God, there's still, I love God. He still has this I, this yesh misha'ev that Lucy's always quoting, that we need, he's working on making smaller, shrinking and shrinking and shrinking to the degree that we can with our inherent limitations, which he made. So we'll conclude here. This is a few more levels to what are we asking? What are we answering? We're saying, why is creation described as Hashem's word? The conclusion of our discussion this morning is to convey, just like speech only exists as I'm talking. I stop talking, the word's gone. Again, you can record it, but that's not my vocal cords anymore. That's a simulation. Whereas if I do an act, I make a mark on the wall, walk away, it's there, independent of me. So Hashem wants us to know creation is ongoing. I am constantly talking, metaphorically, spiritually, creation into existence, and every detail, all is divine providence. It's all part of my plan. Everything in the end you will see is for the good, even your mistakes and sins through teshuvah. Everything. It's comforting, it's empowering, it's humbling, and it's the emes. And that's what our davening is. That's Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. To be continued, God willing, next week, further layers into the metaphor of speech and why that's used to describe creation. All right, my friends, have a wonderful
Good Shabbos.
Friday. Good Shabbos, and I wish everybody a joyous, a freiliche, broad, rich Shabbos Bereishit, and a broad, rich, deep year to come on every level.
Amen.
Amen.
Health, parnasa, all in abundance, and with
Amen.
Shabbos, everyone. Good Shabbos, Rabbi.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Thank you.
Lucy, I want to speak to you for a second. Bisdu.